Beating Nadal on clay is not only the toughest task in tennis, but I'd venture to suggest, Robbie, it's one of the toughest in sport.
Well, I think you're spot on. I think there's few who would disagree with you, and if they would, I'd like for them to present a sizable argument, please.
It's going to be a packed house this evening, no question about that. It's a public holiday here in Madrid. It's a celebration of the patron saint of Madrid. It's also the start of the bullfighting season as these two matadors take center stage. It's going to be interesting this evening to see who gets the most support, because of course Nadal is a national hero. Suggestions that he's the most famous Spanish sports star ever. He's certainly right up there with perhaps Raúl as the most famous at the moment. But of course Verdasco's a local lad, so he said yesterday he's not even sure how much support he's going to get tonight, because it's tough going up against the likes of Nadal in Spain.
Of course it is, and I'm sure the fans will be stuck between a rock and a hard place. But I think if this guy goes down early to Nadal, they'll really get behind him and encourage him to make it a meaningful contest. And I think the vast majority perhaps will want him to win, being from Madrid. I know if I was a local boy, I would expect to get a little bit more support than even the national hero. That's just the way the cookie crumbles.
And tonight, perhaps it's also a celebration of Spanish tennis, given that they were able to win the Davis Cup towards the tail end of last season. And it was Verdasco who filled the sizable shoes that were left in Nadal's absence when he couldn't play. And it was the making of him, really.
It certainly was, and it's the shot in the arm that's really given him the confidence at the start of this season to take his game to a new level. Obviously, he's been doing a lot of off-court work that we've spoken a lot about with Gil Reyes back in Vegas, and that's had a huge impact on him. And as a result, with that confidence, with the extra work off the court, he really has taken his game to another level.
He's been enjoying his time here in Madrid as well. We saw him rock up the other evening in the new Audi supercar, didn't we?
A little R8, and looking very much the part, as he always does. Stepping out of that little red puppy. It's got a parking, being the local boy, right outside the front gate here. Literally has to open the door and he can almost fall into the player's entrance.
I noticed that. He was the only one that was allowed in there. Only the official cars were allowed to park there, and Verdasco. It was a nice little touch.
Certainly was.
But Nadal, of course, has his game face on as ever. Interestingly, he's only had to play the one match this week, because got a walkover against Philip Kohlschreiber yesterday evening. Will that have an adverse effect on Nadal this evening?
No, but if you're at Verdasco, you're hoping that everything that you could possibly look for will have an adverse effect. But the guy's playing so well, Jason. He's had so many matches under the belt. He's just oozing confidence from every pore, and for me, no, it's going to have zero effect on him. If anything, it gives him a little bit more of a rest, allows the body time to recover, and if this match does go long and hard, he'll be well prepared.
Si queréis posar para los fotógrafos y después hacemos el sorteo, ¿vale?
Enrique Molina is the umpire.
Okay, vale. Bueno, tan solo recordaros que tenemos cambios más largos para televisión y si yo tengo duda al final de algún punto, yo voy a ir a ver la marca seguro. Pero entre primeros y segundos sí que os pediría que me pidierais de ir a verla para no retrasar al que saca, ¿vale? ¿Una pregunta? ¿No? ¿Quieres coger? Cara. Cara. Muy bien. Venga, buen partido.
I think the conditions at this time in the evening here are absolutely perfect in Madrid. It's been a warm one today, a high of 23 degrees centigrade, 74 degrees Fahrenheit. But of course it's a little cooler now, and it wasn't that windy today, and that's a good thing, because it was a bit breezy yesterday, and on the first day it was very, very windy. But today the wind is coming in from the northwest. It's only about 8 kilometers an hour, 5 miles an hour. That won't trouble the players. and that means that they won't be troubled by the dust coming up off the court either. And because it's not as sunny now as it was earlier today, the court won't dry out as quickly, so they'll be able to move better, so the quality of tennis should be better as a result. Djokovic, as I've already mentioned, already through to the semi-finals. He defeated Ivan Ljubicic in 2 sets, and Federer needed 3 to get the better of Roddick. The winner of this match will play Djokovic in tomorrow's semi-final. Well, as you would expect, a lot of support for Nadal. He supports these Spanish events very well. Of course, he was a champion in Barcelona a few weeks ago, as well as, of course, picking up titles in Monte Carlo and Rome. So win-loss record this season, absolutely phenomenal. 39-3, and as well as all of these clay court titles, we'll put them all together because he wins them every year. He's also managed to win the Australian Open. That was a phenomenal effort too, Robbie.
Certainly was. Those back-to-back 5-set matches against Verdasco and Federer, quite unbelievable. Testimony to this guy's athletic ability, and just testimony to what a tough competitor he is. For me, the toughest I've ever seen in my sport.
And it took him a while to become the world's best player, but now he's head and shoulders really above everybody else, because not only is he dominating on the clay, but he's also picking up titles on all sorts of different surfaces as well. Wimbledon, of course, on the grass, Australian Open on the hard courts, just the US Open missing now. And of course, if he is successful in Paris, it would set up a monumental Wimbledon, because if we were able to win there, of course, the Grand Slam would be on. But I'm getting ahead of myself there. I'm dreaming of that situation come August and September. Of course, he's also set records as far as the Masters Series events are concerned. He now has 15 titles, 1 more than Federer and 2 shy of Agassi, who's the all-time record holder at 17. Just the 1 match this week for Nadal, and it was a pretty comfortable one as well. Jürgen Meltzer was dispatched for the loss of just 4 games, and amazingly, he made 3 unforced errors in the whole match.
Watertight, I think that's the best way to describe that performance. So Verdasco will know exactly what he's in for this evening, that's for sure. It's not the first time they've played.
And I think that's good in one sense and bad in another, because obviously you know that there's a sizable mountain that you have to climb, but the improvements that we've seen from Verdasco in the last 6 or 7 months have been equally as impressive. He's made the quarterfinals or better in all of the tournaments that he's played so far this year. And this is a guy who, a season ago, Robbie, we were saying was monumentally inconsistent.
Yeah, we were calling him Mr. Inconsistent for a while, and how things have turned around. But again, for me, Jason, it all goes back to his preparation. Obviously, at the end of last year, he said, okay, enough's enough. Got to get myself in supreme shape, because I know that if I'm physically strong, I'm going to be mentally tough as well. And that's exactly what he's gone about doing. He's gone out of his comfort zone. He's gone all the way over to the States, which is so unusual for the Europeans to do. He's got some other input from a guy who's worked with one of the best players ever in our sport, Gil Reyes, and he's made the most of it.
Yeah, it's always nice that you are able to come to that realization just in time. Verdasco now, of course, 25 years of age, and he will feel that physically now he's in the best possible shape, and mentally too he's starting to get this experience that he could draw upon, and it's helping him win matches pretty comfortably now against players that perhaps a year ago, 18 months ago, he might have beaten sometimes, but he would also have lost to on several occasions throughout the course of the season. But that's not happening anymore, and his match yesterday against Monaco was a perfect example. That guy is a really good clay court player. He beat him in straight sets. Yeah,
let's not forget, in 2007 Monaco won the 2nd most number of clay court matches behind Nadal, so he's no bunny. And incidentally, it's also the first time ever that Verdasco has made it to the quarterfinals here, so this match takes on even more meaning, and there's going to be a lot of emotion inside of him, and I think he needs to keep that under wraps, under control, but at the same time he's got to find the right balance, Jason, of, you know, getting pumped up, but he doesn't want to get too pumped up that it starts to affect his game.
Now, how do you come into a match like this where you've lost all 8 of their previous meetings, and they actually played in the Challenger as well in Hamburg back in 2003. Nadal won that one too in straight sets, so it's 9-0, the head-to-head record. Do you just ignore it and say, well, he can't beat me forever, or do you say, well, look, you know, I've got to try and do something a little differently, and each time you fine-tune your game plan.
Yeah, because I think he knows what Nadal's going to bring to the table, so it's pretty much in his hands, you know. I think he's still going to have to go for his shots. He knows what it takes to win, and he's just got to convince himself that in Australia he came close. For me, you just keep thinking about that match where, okay, what did I do in Australia that was so effective against him? And I'm going to try and implement that same sort of game plan tonight. That's the way I would go about doing it if I was in his shoes.
Enrique Molina is the umpire. I think looking sharp as anybody this week in the ATP suits. I think what he's actually done is he's got his own suit, tailor-made, and he's just put the little logo on there because his fits him better than all of the other guys. And I see their logos are always on the breast of their pocket, whereas he's just popped a little logo on there. So I think he's done it right. That's what I'd do if I was an umpire.
Exactly. Fashion aficionado, Jason Goodall.
And the ladies in our production team certainly appreciate that. He's in good shape, Enrique. Now let's talk a little bit, Robbie, about the conditions and whether it's good to be playing Nadal when the ball travels through the air quickly and it bounces nice and high off a firm court like this one, or whether it's a disadvantage.
I think it's tougher to play him when that forehand gets up so high. He puts so much spin on it, it's so tough to control that I think this could be the toughest surface to play him on as far as the clay court is concerned. But then again, the thing tonight is that he's playing a lefty, so that takes on a different meaning as far as I'm concerned. Here's a natural forehand, the one cross court bouncing up is to Verdasco's forehand, so Verdasco's not going to mind. So that does change things a bit. So as far as this goes, if I'm Verdasco, I look at myself. I don't really worry too much about my opponent, and I think conditions for Fernando this evening are quite good.
Well, interestingly, he said in his press conference yesterday when they asked him about how he was feeling coming into this particular match, because of course they knew that Nadal had already won, he said, look, it's pretty simple. I have to hope that Nadal has a horrible day and plays poorly, and I've got to play the best match of my life. If that happens, I've got a chance of winning.
It's interesting that he says that, because I tell you what, in Australia I thought Nadal played unbelievable tennis and he only just was able to beat this guy. But I guess now that we're playing on a clay court, that's probably why that statement was said that way. So yeah, it's interesting to get inside the mind of these guys sometimes and actually see how they perceive a potential matchup.
Well, of course, in the last few years, Verdasco will have put Nadal on a pedestal. All the things that Nadal's been able to achieve in the last 5 years have been absolutely phenomenal. I guess one of Darren Cahill's jobs this evening is to dismantle the image that Verdasco has of Nadal as being this tennis god.
Absolutely, and sometimes a tennis coach's job is not only about telling a guy tactics, it's doing exactly what you've just explained, trying to make him believe that he can beat Nadal, and there's different ways of doing that. One of them, as you suggest, perhaps dismantle that opinion that he has of Nadal and try and make out as if Nadal is fallible, point to some losses that he's had on clay, although they're few and far between. But as a coach, that's how you earn your corn, coming up with ideas like that. And you know, if you're a good coach, if you're a great coach, and that's what Cahill is, you're able to do that.
And of course, he's worked with great players, and so he'll be able to pass on all sorts of invaluable information. We got a little shot of Fernando's dad there as well, and interestingly, he credited his family and his friends with all this success that he's now having. He said, it's come about because I'm so happy off the court. I've got my dad traveling with me. I've got friends traveling with me. I've got a good setup around me now in terms of Darren Cahill and Gil Race. I'm really happy, and when I'm really happy, I'm playing my best tennis, and that's, he thinks, the main reason why he's been able to have so much success in the last 6 or 7 months. He's got a valid point.
Certainly has, and I mean, you just have to look to the other side of the court and have a look at Rafa Nadal, and he's had that for the last, 6 or 7 years with his family. He got it right from the very beginning, and it's continued, just perfectly for the world number one. And perhaps Verdasco's taken a page out of Nadal's book in that respect. But the Spanish people in general seem to have quite a strong family culture. I've noticed that with a lot of the Spanish guys that I've come across throughout the course of my playing career, and obviously post-tennis as well. Yeah,
I used to work a little bit with Mary Jo Fernandez, and of course she has a Spanish family, and they were all very close-knit. I used to travel with her all the time, used to support her day in, day out, mum, dad, sister's family, and it is very, very interesting that they take it very seriously, as they should. And they do draw a great deal of confidence from having the support of their family.
And they seem to get the balance right. The family doesn't seem to be overbearing and want to be so much part of the show. You don't get those psycho parents like you do from other countries as well. The Spanish seem to have it really right, and credit to them. And I think probably that's one of the reasons why they've got so many players now ranked in the top 100 and even in the top 50. Probably credit to them as a nation for that.
Well, the eyes of the world's press are focused firmly on these two this evening. There's been a lot of publicity about the event itself, given that they've been able to build this magnificent stadium in the last 12 months. There's been a few teething problems, has to be said. The players have talked about the fact that some of the practice courts aren't particularly good, and some of the facilities aren't large enough to accommodate men and women, because of course it's a mixed event here this week. But I think generally speaking, they appreciate the effort that's gone in to building this magnificent stadium, which of course, Robbie, is part of the push for the Olympics in 2016.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Remember, they failed in their bid to win the 2012 Olympics. That went to you guys. London's got it. And I was reading in the In-Flight magazine that 75% of the facilities are pretty much in place and within 15 kilometers of where the Olympic Village would be. So Madrid has obviously got a strong case, and it's an improved bid from the one that they had in 2012. They got a lot more financial support, and probably as a result a lot better prepared for 2016's bid.
Tough evening for Feliciano Lopez, because of course he's good buddies with Nadal, but of course he's best buddies having a little bromance with Fernando Verdasco. So he's going to have to clap below the hoarding there so that Rafa doesn't see him. So they are good friends, and all the Spanish players tend to practice with one another, travel with one another, a little bit like the Swedes used to when they were dominant in world terms. And that certainly helps as well. There's a real buzz around the Magic Box this evening. We're hoping that both players will be able to bring their very best magic to the court this evening. We know that they're magnificent shot makers. If they play anywhere near their best, it'll be an absolute treat and a privilege to be courtside. And it'll be Nadal to get the party started. Initially, when we were told that Madrid would be the site of this particular tournament rather than Hamburg, Nadal said, well, I'm not so sure about that. Don't want to be playing at altitude the week before the French Open. I'd rather not be playing there. But his concentration this week, his application, has been absolute so far. And I think in a nutshell, that's what Nadal is so good at. He'll say his piece, he'll give his opinion, but he will accept the situation fully and just concentrate totally on the job at hand.
That's it in a nutshell, and that's what makes him so successful, I believe, Jason. This ability to compartmentalize everything in his game, everything that surrounds him as far as tennis is concerned. Never gets too far ahead of himself about talking about, you know, who's he going to play in the finals of the French Open. He's worried about this match. He's worried about the first couple of games. He's worried about the first serve or the next point. And he does that better than anybody else at the moment. He has been doing it on this surface for a while. And it's starting to obviously leak into other surfaces as well, where he's playing so well now on hard courts and on grass.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was listening to an interview with Andre Agassi the other day, and he said he thinks Federer's much more talented than Nadal, but he said no one comes close to the Spaniard in terms of athletic ability and mental toughness. I think he's absolutely right. Important game, this one. Need to get off to a good start this evening. These two did play in Rome a couple of weeks ago, and Nadal won comfortably, 6-3, 6-3. But Verdasco said he's watched the tapes of that match, or the DVDs, and he said thinks he's highlighted one or two areas in which he can improve to turn things around this evening. And even if he doesn't manage to do that, Robbie, what I liked about that comment was the fact that he is going back and watching the matches that he loses in order to learn from them.
Of course it is. Best way to learn. You learn a lot more from your losses than you do from your wins. Tend to glaze over the situation when you've won. You don't analyze it in as much depth as when you lose.
So important to serve well at altitude. And the players have talked all week at great length about the fact that they think the return of serve is probably the toughest shot to execute well here, because unless you really connect well with the ball and you fully commit to the shot, it just flies.
Yeah, and the players have been very smart about using that heavy kick serve as a first serve. So Andy Murray do it yesterday in his match, not only using the altitude but the wind as well. And a lot of the guys have been using that tactic throughout the course of the week. Federer in his match earlier today used it to good effect as well. And it allows you to get a good first serve percentage while still being aggressive. That's important.
30-15.
And if this shot can fire for Fernando, he's got a shot. Because that forehand is lethal. There's few in the game who hit it as hard and as consistent as what he does.
And I like the tactic of going at the Nadal forehand too. He was a terrific artist on the court, Manolo Santana, and of course this centre court named after him. He must be very proud.
Won the French Open twice. Obviously loved the surface. 61, 64.
Really aggressive ground strokes. This time it was the shot up the line that did the damage.
Great depth. A combination of power and pace. Tough to deal with.
Segundo servicio.
Both players are striking the ball very sweetly indeed this evening.
Nadal gana 2-1.
Both have managed to hold serve relatively comfortably so far. 2-1. It's going to be so important this evening, if Verdasco is going to eventually prevail, for him to maintain his concentration throughout. He cannot afford to let his guard down even momentarily against Nadal. So that will be a huge test for the 25-year-old.
Little adjustment from Nadal there. This time using it forehand, the high bouncing one to the backhand of Verdasco. Even with the two hands, Verdasco struggling with that high backhand.
This is what I mentioned at the beginning of the game. It only takes 1 or 2 unforced errors to allow Nadal to gain the upper hand. points for the world number one.
Correction, por favor.
Miro, Rafael.
Just wants confirmation from the umpire.
Sí, toca una mica. Sí.
And he gets it. Good overall.
Primer servicio.
Sensible serve. I'll be a little disappointed that he gave the return up so cheaply. He's got a chance to make amends here.
Got away with that point a little bit there, Jason. Verdasco had 3 or 4 opportunities early on in that point to rip the forehand and chose not to. I thought Nadal might make him pay.
We're going to like that serve against the Nadal forehand, because I'm sure 9 times out of 10 he's expecting it to the backhand. Well, that'll be a big boost for Verdasco. Looked in all sorts of trouble at love 40 after a couple of really poor unforced errors. Some sensible serving has allowed him to eventually hold. 2-all. Both players serving sensibly so far. Nadal's made 9 of 11 first serves, Verdasco 10 of 13. That's a good combination. So effective, especially when the court starts to dry out a little bit.
30-0.
Able to create some unbelievable angles with that forehand.
Oh, lovely shot. He doesn't hit that one that often, likes to go cross court with the backhand. So that perhaps a sign that he's nice and confident this evening.
Still the headers when he hits that shot.
It's a poor call. I think one or two of the officials are a little tight this evening as well. Just a little overzealous. Muttering an apology, I think, there. Sorry, sir.
Repetición del punto. 40-0.
And again, I think we've got to see a lot of that this evening from Verdasco, peppering the Nadal forehand when he least expects it.
Yeah, and players who have success against Nadal use that tactic well against him. Go to his forehand and open up the backhand. But often they catch Nadal leaning to his backhand corner because he knows he likes to run around that side and use the forehand. So that means the forehand side is exposed.
Yeah, the likes of David Nalbandian, James Blake, all used it well in the past. Signs of frustration from Verdasco. Nadal holds once more, and therefore edges into the lead. Jason Goodall alongside Robbie Koenig on day 5 of our live coverage here in Madrid. It's the 5th Masters Series that entered the 2009 season. And of course, it's the 3rd stop on clay here in Europe. Last chance, perhaps, for the players left in the tournament to claim some major silverware, or perhaps get their hands on some Waterford crystal before heading to Paris next week. Fernando Verdasco has never made it through to the semi-finals at this level, so that would be a first. And of course, Nadal hasn't tasted defeat on clay this season. So that would be another little bit of history in the making. his achievements. Certainly be very difficult to come by. You can tell how important this sporting event is, because we've got royalty in the stands. Princess is an avid tennis fan, keeping an eye on the King of Clay.
15 iguales.
It's funny, over the years I've started to associate Spain so much as the tennis capital of clay versus French Roland Garros, just because I think so many players have come from this country that excelled on this surface. It's almost a shame in many ways that they don't have a major, given their history as well and the amount of great players they've produced.
And given Jon Tiriac's reputation, don't bet against him somehow managing to get the French Open here in Spain and changing it to the Spanish Open for that to become the 4th major.
Well, he certainly has one of the best boxes there, courtside, that's for sure.
Very much instrumental in getting this tournament initially. Of course, it was indoors at the tail end of the season, and he very much wanted to change that. And he's been instrumental as well in getting the finance and the backing to put this whole site together. And I'm sure he's very proud of what he's been able to achieve, but he won't sit on his laurels. He'll want to do much more in the future. Next on his list is obviously the Olympics in 2016. And he'll want to make sure that this particular event grows in stature season upon season. And he'll be delighted that there's so much interest in the first of this evening's quarterfinals. After the first 6 games, it's very much on as even.
Pero 15.
Certainly the hot ticket to have. Plenty of famous Real Madrid players in the stands throughout the course of the week, and more of the same this evening. Morgan tennis from Verdasco. Able to control that rally without taking too many risks. That's the key on clay. That's of course what Nadal does so often.
40-30.
Well, those are the types of half chances that you have to make the most of when you're up against the likes of Nadal. That's Nadal at his very best. That point would have been won 3 shots ago against anybody else on the planet. But Nadal able to turn defence into attack quite sensationally. And the top seed, therefore, edges into the lead once more. 4-3. Of course, Nadal has won 6 Grand Slam titles so far. Never been beaten at the French Open. And of course, last year, sensationally defeated Federer in what many suggest is the greatest Wimbledon final of all time. Did the same to the Swiss #1 in the finals of the Australian Open this year. So, the only one missing from his Grand Slam tally is the US Open. Many that are starting to whisper now that Nadal might go on to win more Grand Slams than Federer. A couple of years ago, no one would have thought that was going to happen. It's been the only downside this evening. The quality of the officiating has been a little poor. They're all a little on edge, making calls when they shouldn't. Haven't missed many, they've just been calling balls out and they've been in. I don't think there's anything sinister behind that. Perfect. Couldn't have played the point any better. When sitting down with Darren Cahill before the match, they will have discussed precisely this pattern of play. Going wide to the Nadal forehand, opening up the court, and then taking the ball early on the rise and hitting into the open court. And you made that look very simple. It isn't, especially in conditions like these. And I think you can always tell when the matches are hugely important, when you get some of the female tennis players as well taking an interest. Safina, world #1. Still going strong in this one, and she's having a good clay court season herself. Well, Robbie, we said it was going to be important for Verdasco to get off to a good start, and he's done exactly that. I think from a game plan point of view, it's been perfect, and the execution been pretty good as well.
Yeah, I think he can pretty much tick all the boxes as far as his execution is concerned. Mentally, he's done well. It's right around this time now. He's got to raise the level, because you know Nadal is... This is what you play the sport for. These kind of situations where you can compare your very best to one of the greatest.
People might suggest that it's a bit strange that whenever we do a match of Nadal's, we're always discussing how to beat him and what opponents need to do. That's not suggesting that we don't admire just how good Nadal is. In fact, that's the point. He's so good that he wins so many matches. The great test is always whether or not you're going to be able to beat him.
Of course it is. And if you are, how are you going to do it? Because we know he comes out and does pretty much the same well all the time. Just fine-tunes his game plans, whoever he's playing against. But he is so good at what he does that he forces you to come up with something special in order to beat him.
This is a rare error. This huge point now. What a shot. What a shot. Especially given the circumstances.
Verdasco really only gave him about half a meter to hit into. And of course Nadal finds it. Look at that. I mean, within an inch of the line. It was just big enough gap there. I think he's amped.
A little slow getting up to that one.
Billie Jean King always used to say, pressure is a privilege. Means that you've been able to take it close with whoever you're playing against. And it's time to earn your corn. That's where Verdasco is right now.
think you've got to embrace it, haven't you, Robbie? You've got to say, right, before the match, this is exactly where I wanted to be. 4-all, love 30, so let's go for it. Rather than, geez, this is a big point. I hope I don't miss, or I hope Nadal gives me a free point.
That's exactly right. And that's what the great players are able to do. They love it. They look forward to it.
This has been an excellent response from Nadal. We'll obviously have to see how things pan out, but that was a golden opportunity for Verdasco. It was the response that was magnificent from Nadal, especially that point at love 30. Shot of the match without a shadow of a doubt. 5-4.
For me, Jason, one of the things that I really enjoy about watching Nadal is that he finds so much pleasure in winning, even if it's a first round match, even if it's closing out that last game. He's always so rewarding of himself. He gets so much joy when he plays this game.
And I'd take it one stage further. I'd say it's not even necessarily the winning, it's the competing. He still enjoys it if he's tried his hardest and been involved in a great effort and loses. So that's the great thing, I think, for me about Nadal. It's just always about the process, not the end result. It's been a very interesting opening set, this one. Both players have played well. Some really good tennis. Nadal now has an opportunity to put a little bit of additional pressure on Verdasco. Let's see how it copes.
Primer servicio.
You just got that feeling the moment Nadal won that opening point that Verdasco was going to get into a little bit of trouble in this game.
And the problem's compounded because he knows he had love 30 in the previous game, and he knows he let it get away from him. He's got to respond as well as Nadal did now in exactly the same situation. That's the change-up. Took advantage of the short ball. And again, it's controlled aggression. It's hitting aggressively to safe targets on big points that he does so well. Three set points. reasons how difficult it is to beat Nadal on clay. The situation changed so quickly. At 4-all love 30, it looked like Verdasco held the upper hand. And 5 minutes later, Nadal seals the opening set 6-4. Nadal's won 93% of the matches he's played throughout the course of his career on clay. 174 wins and just 14 losses. His record on clay since 2005 is even better. 148 wins and just 4 losses. Holds a world record, of course, for consecutive matches won on this particular surface. 81, which he set between April 2005 and May 2007. And of course, this week he's going in search of his 26th career ATP title on clay. Absolutely phenomenal. He's only lost 2 of his last 136 matches on clay. So it's going to be a very big ask for Verdasco now to turn things around. There's plenty of Julian Nadals dotted around Spain, I'm sure. Be interesting to see in 10 years' time how many play like him. There'll be a fair few. Whether they'll be as good remains to be seen.
Well, everybody who comes to watch Nadal is mesmerized by the way he plays, and if ever you get the chance, do yourself a favor and try and once in your life come and watch him play in the flesh, because the amount of spin and pace that he generates on the ball, when you see it live, it is something quite special.
And just the sheer athleticism as well. It's phenomenal, these guys. Just made it.
It's around the outside of the ball, bending it like Beckham.
Nadal-like in its execution. The highest compliment you could pay any player. Perhaps Nadal guilty here of losing his concentration a little bit. First opportunity of the match for Verdasco. Can't afford to do that. It's as simple as that. He knows it. Everyone in the stadium knows it. We know it.
That could be the only chance he gets in the set to break. In the middle of the box, second serve, and he can't put the ball back in court.
That's the difference at the moment between Verdasco, ranked 8th in the world, and the best on the planet. Wiped its feet twice, not once.
Yeah, well, it's tough enough playing against Nadal on a clay court, but it's even tougher when he gets Lady Luck on the side as well. That makes a tough duo.
Very unusual. It's become an important game, this one now. It's close to 6 minutes in duration. The longer it goes on, the more important it'll become. It's not even close.
And he's just testing the strings, because last time I had 2 in a row out was about 5.5 years ago. The short ball in the middle of the court.
Well, there has to be a problem.
Houston.
It's not me. Players have been stringing the rackets a little tighter this week, going up a couple of pounds or so to try and deal with the altitude and the fact that the ball is flying. Now, here's a chance for Verdasco to make amends for that poorly played first break point. That's the difficulty when you play against Nadal on a firm clay court. The ball does get so high, so tough to control. Yes, that's the way, because those shots of Nadal's were dropping very short.
And if there's one guy who's got the firepower to hit the ball through the court against Nadal on clay, it's this guy. Inside the baseline as well, catches that ball on the rise.
Now, will he be third time lucky? It's a late call. Everybody converges on the mark. So another official that's just a little overzealous. Still a break point. What a response from Verdasco, did so well there. Would have been kicking himself for those earlier opportunities that he spurned. Gets the vital break of serve in the end. Just in the nick of time.
Yeah, because he could have so easily gotten down on himself after he missed that easy return on the first break point. Second serve, middle of the box, fails to put into play. And after losing a tight first set, that sort of thing can compound. That sort of plays on your mind, but he hasn't let it. Beautiful response. And again, I always refer to this playing in Madrid. I'm sure he's not going to let himself get down on himself. He's going to keep fighting. He's got a lot to prove to his fans here.
And of course, having so many fans in the stadium, it's important that he gives them enough to cheer. He wasn't able to do that quite in the opening set, though it was a very, very tight one. But by getting the early break of serve in the second, he's given his fans hope, and that's so important.
Keep them on your side. Got to help them to help you.
Sound like Tom Cruise there, mate.
He sounded like me. Tom knows he's watching the match.
Classic scene in Jerry Maguire. Cuba Gooding Jr. Help me to help you. You guys are about the same height, aren't you? You and Tom? 5'5".
Yeah, only when Tom puts his 6-inch heel puppies on. That's when we get to about the same height. Look, I'm eyeball to eyeball. If I will ever want to step out the shower, let's get that straight once and for all.
But what about when you step down off the toilet? 5'2" tops. Good serve.
Yeah.
This is an important game, because having just broken, sometimes it's easy to feel relieved. You think, oh yeah, eventually the job's done.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can just lose your concentration a little bit. We've seen Nadal make shots like that time and time again. The one he made in the opening set. Love 30 down at 4-all was much tougher proposition than that.
Perfect response. So important to cement that break of serve. It's never a break until you hold. What the pros say.
Suddenly there's a large spring in his step. Verdasco is back on track. Nadal now has to hold serve here, surely. Stand a chance of winning this one in 2. Brilliant from Verdasco. So well to get that ball back in play. Usually it's Nadal who defends so well.
And it's points like this where all that hard work you put in the off-season pays dividends. How well he did to get back into the rally there. Nadal can't believe that it was indeed a net.
There's no question that Nadal has lost his concentration here. He only made 10 unforced errors in the opening 10 games. That's a pretty good ratio. But already in this set alone, he's made 8, 5 of which come off the forehand. And all of a sudden, it's Verdasco with a golden opportunity to take a stranglehold on this second set. Well, there it is. Verdasco started this second set phenomenally well. A terrific response to the loss of the first. He leads 3-love. That's a win-win situation for Manolo Santana this evening, because whoever wins will be a Spaniard through to the semi-finals. At the moment, looks like we're going to go the distance. It's been a terrific effort, Robbie, from Verdasco at the beginning of this second set.
Certainly has.
Tomen asiento rápidamente, por favor.
Very important game, the first one.
Verdasco's done well to get the momentum working firmly in his favour now, and he's got to make the most of it. Incredibly, he's won 12 of the last 16 points. Needs to build on it here.
See ya. Well, he's playing close to the baseline and occasionally inside the court, and that's making all the difference for Fernando tonight, especially in the second set. So important to take time away from Nadal when you play against him. So tough to outmaneuver him, and that's one of the best ways of doing it.
Well, look a little anxious, don't they? Manolo looks like the princess has just asked him what's going on down the other end of the court, and he's having trouble coming up with the answer. We all are. This goes done an excellent job of forcing Nadal into error as well. Intensity level hasn't dropped since the opening set.
This game is far from over. So important that he cements this double break. I mean, how often have we seen it, Jason, where when you think you've got Nadal, just comes back, turns things around before you know it.
Yes, what a shot. That's what he's done so well in this second set. He's been able to pull the trigger at the appropriate moment without making errors. And phenomenally, it's Verdasco who leads 4-love here in the second.
Yeah.
Well, that was a lovely serve. Nice to change things up as well, throwing a little bit of serve and volley. Well, the adrenaline is coursing through his veins now. And the showman in Verdasco is desperate to rear his head. Unlucky to break his string when returning. That's the reason why he lost control of the ball. A better game from Nadal's point of view, but Verdasco still with a big lead. Well, Jason Goodall alongside Robbie Koenig for the first of this evening's matches. And Rafael Nadal will be a little shocked, I think, with how poorly he's played in the beginning of this second set. Or, Robbie, is it very much a case of Verdasco raising the level of his game and forcing Nadal into error?
No, I think it's fair comment. I think it's the second one, definitely. Verdasco's definitely played a little bit better. He's hit plenty of winners, but the serve for me has been particularly effective so far in the second set. He's got a lot of free points off of it. And that's always key when you play against Nadal.
Three doubles in this set for Verdasco, 5 in total now. Good reactions. Could be dangerous then. It's a shame. I like the tactic of going straight at Nadal on serve.
You spoke about the showman in him. He's got to be so careful of letting that loose, because if he does start to showboat a bit, that's when he's going to lose focus. And in the blink of an eye, this stranglehold that he's got on the set will disappear.
Well, in this game, interestingly, he has gone for a couple of big first serves, made one, missed one. Suddenly, it's the feel on the second serve that's deserted him. Just be handing Nadal a lifeline here in the second set. That was a poor game. His first poor game for a good half an hour or so. That's why it's always advisable to try and get a double break of serve if you can. Just gives you that little bit of additional insurance here. He doesn't like that racket, he's going to get rid of it so he can wipe the slate clean mentally, and that's important. Nadal now finds himself just the one breakdown. I don't think there's anybody in the game that has as much belief in their own ability to turn around situations like this than Nadal. And I think one of the reasons for that is that he's so good at just taking it one step at a time rather than looking too far ahead.
Yeah, you call it process goals. Love that phrase. He's able to stay in the present better than any player.
Oh, yes. Well, at 4-love, the set pretty much looks done and dusted. But at 4-3, it's a very different story. Well, we mentioned how well Verdasco had done to get the momentum working in his favour initially in this set by winning 12 of 16 points at one stage. Suddenly, Nadal has done remarkably well in that regard by winning 14 of the last 17 points to try and redress the balance. Verdasco still has the advantage of a break of serve. The big question is, can he make the most of it now? That's one for the show reel.
Shades of the great Pete Sampras here with the slam dunk. Tell you what, MJ would have enjoyed seeing that much airtime, that's for sure.
It's a gutsy play at this stage of the proceedings. Get that one wrong, you look very silly. Such a delicate balance. Yes, you have to be aggressive against Nadal, and he got the balance absolutely right at the beginning of this set, but you could see a subtle change. Just started to go for his shots a little more than was necessary, and therefore just started to miss a little more regularly, and he's allowed Nadal back into the match. Those serve percentages dropped markedly as well in the last couple of games. More likely.
Well, he is one of the hardest hitters of a tennis ball, that's for sure. And that average ground stroke speed is testimony to it. It's a good 4 or 5% harder than Nadal.
Just overcooked it. It's a terrific backhand from Nadal midway through that rally, but he just floated within inches of the baseline.
And I thought Verdasco should have come in, had a good chance to come in when he hit that big forehand. This one right here, even Nadal, best he could do was a defensive reply. You can't let him hang around, because again, he makes the court feel so small, it makes you go ever closer to the lines.
Point, Nadal. It's amazing how quickly things can change. We were full of praise for all that Verdasco was able to achieve in the first 4 games of the set, but the wheels have now come off, and we have to give Nadal a lot of credit for still believing at love 4 that the match could be 1 in 2.
Yeah. Should never have doubted him, that's for sure. But I'll be very surprised now if Verdasco goes on to win this set. A lot more surprised than what I was when he went up 4-0 in the second set.
Brilliant. And it's so interesting how the mind works when you're competing in sport, because if you looked up at the scoreboard and said, okay, I'm 4-all in the second set on serve with Nadal, and I've just played a first point like that, you'd be very happy with the situation. But suddenly when you've been 4-love up and now it's only 4-all, it's very easy to be negative about the situation.
Of course it is. It's a good way of putting it. When you're out there, you've got to play these mind games with yourself. Especially if you want to get down on yourself, you've got to try and build yourself up by playing these mind games.
Let. Primer servicio.
Well, we were discussing at the beginning of the set as to how well Verdasco had tidied up his game and how many unforced errors Nadal was making. And he'd made 9 in the first 4 games of this set. Since then, he's only made 2, whereas Verdasco has made 9. So that's certainly contributed to the changing situation. Phenomenal serve.
He plays with so much intensity. He's relentless. There's a lot of players that can hang with him for a while. There's so few that can maintain that level of intensity to live with him throughout the course of a match, or 2 or 3 hours if need be.
Prevented some frustration there on the soles of his shoes, and it's understandable. The second set slipped rapidly through his fingers. Nadal now just 4 points away from victory. It's an understandably difficult situation for Verdasco now mentally. Somehow he's got to try and forget about the fact that he's lost the last 5 games in a row. He's got to glance up at the scoreboard and try and kid himself that we're on serve, things have been going well, and he's got every chance of hanging with Nadal for as long as it takes this evening. But of course that's easier said than done, because the momentum now firmly is in Nadal's favour. Verdasco has to hold serve here to stem the flow of blood and stay in the tournament. He's only won 6 of the last 23 points that these two have contested. It's hardly credible, given how well he played in the first 4 games of the set. It's more like it. Well, he said he'd looked at the DVDs of the match that he lost to Nadal in Rome, and he'd learned lessons. Certainly played a lot better this evening than he did back then, but he always have further lessons to learn this evening. That's for sure.
And I think those lessons, Jason, are more mental than anything else.
And that's what matters most when you're talking about playing sport at the highest level. After an hour and 38 minutes, Nadal stands at match point.
Yes.
Serve. We'll work on it nice and short at that single sideline, so he's able to create a lovely angle. Still match point. Brilliant.
Time to produce one of your fastest serves of the evening.
Third ace in this set, 4 now in total. Nadal there just a tad tentative. Majority of his ground strokes in that rally dropping in the short. Gutsy effort. Didn't bury it at 15-40. Does indeed manage to stop the rot.
A game like that can go a long way to helping you get back into a match. It means so much more. You're able to come out of a tight situation like that. And if you save a break point at 1-all or 2-all in a set, that'll give them real belief. It's the one he loves. It's fired occasionally tonight, just not consistently enough. It's been patchy.
Suddenly this game's got very interesting as well.
It was the right return because Nadal was racing to his backhand corner looking for a forehand, and it exposed his forehand side. It didn't even need to be that close. Verdasco would have had him in all kinds of problems.
Not easy to take the ball early. In a court like this, where the ball bounces exceptionally high, and there have been a few bad bounces throughout the course of the week. And that might be a little bit of luck that Verdasco needs. Well, again, didn't miss by much, but it's enough. At this stage in the set, you've got to make Nadal work so hard in order to win the points that really matter. It's a risky shot.
Just can't find a way to win a point on the juice court. Both players feeling the strain at the moment. Tension's palpable.
F Verdasco.
Nadal just gone off the boil a little bit here. Missing a few forehands. Striking his backhand as cleanly as he usually does. This is when you've got to pounce.
He has been a little up and down in this second set. Certainly made more than his fair share of unforced errors initially when falling behind 4-love. Tidied his game up beautifully and suffering a little bit of a relapse now. What a shot. Pulled it out of nowhere.
Last thing Verdasco expected. And safe as well. He doesn't try and hit it too close to the line. He knows if it's short enough, it's going to get the job done. But the element of surprise, given the magnitude of the point, outstanding.
I haven't even sniffed that shot all evening.
Primer servicio. Ventaja Nadal.
Forehand up the line is usually such a reliable shot for Verdasco. It's blown hot and cold this evening. 21 unforced errors coming off his favourite wing.
That's a brilliant return. Just getting frustrated, I think, that he can't string two decent points together. Sometimes you have games like that, don't you, Robbie, where you're playing so badly on one side of the court and then you're excelling on the other. It's so frustrating.
It certainly is. You just can't figure out what you're doing wrong. Similarly, your opponent is thinking the exact same thing.
Beautifully done. An excellent tactic at this stage in the proceedings because the court has dried out the back. And therefore, turning is much more difficult. 6-5, second set. Well, there have been plenty of twists and turns in this second set already. Question is, how many more will there be? Nadal's already had 2 match points. Verdasco was 15-40 down when serving to stay in it at 4-5. Now he's got to handle that additional pressure once more.
0-15.
Nadal is a master at piling on the pressure. Well, 1540 was a perilous position to find himself in at 4-5. Love 40 at 5-6 is even worse. Third match point for the world number one.
Yes.
There it is. A remarkable effort to win in straight sets, given that he fell behind 4-love in the second, but he timed his pushes perfectly at the tail end of the first set by winning the last 8 points of it, and in the second set by winning 8 of the last 9. And that's what all the greatest match players are able to do. Bring their best when they need it most. And that's exactly what Nadal did this evening. So the world number one continues his dominance on this particular surface and puts paid to one of Madrid's favourite tennis sons in front of a packed house here in the Magic Box. Nadal through to the semi-finals in straight sets in an hour and 58 minutes.
He keeps the slate clean as far as playing against Fernando Verdasco is concerned. That's 9-0 now. Nadal over his fellow countryman. One of the best matches we've seen so far this week, with plenty of drama, great shot making, especially in the opening set, and then Verdasco played some unbelievable tennis there at the beginning of the second, but just couldn't sustain the level. And how often we say that. It's so tough to live with Nadal for a long period of time. There's players who can do it for a couple of games, but as we've seen over the years, especially on this surface, there's very few that can hang with him all the time.
The belief was so strong, even in that second set when he fell behind 4-love. As soon as he got that one game to 4-1, you could sense it, couldn't you, that he still believed he could win the set.
It's just an ability almost to impose himself on his opponents when he's down. We saw him do it against David Nalbandian a couple of months ago in, I think it was Indian Wells, when he was down match points against the Argentine for a straight sets defeat, but somehow he found a way to win. And he's a similar sort of scenario, but not as perilously close against Verdasco. But in the second set, as you said, 4-love down, but came back beautifully. Verdasco, a lot of positives. I think he played better, played a smarter tactical game tonight than what he did against him in Rome. Just the unforced errors finally catching up to him, and perhaps he got ahead of himself when he got 4-love up in that second set, and you can't afford to do that against Nadal. The focus has to be on the present, and it has to be unwavering. But Nadal supremely confident in his ability to get the job done in straight sets, and that's what he was able to do. Just under 2 hours, 6-4, 7-5.